Everyone, let's go ahead and get rolling.
Welcome to today's webinar, everyone. My name is Laura. I'm a newbie here for the HMIS team. So yeah, before I go into this, I'll let everyone else introduce themselves.
All right, let's just go alphabetical. Want to start, Alexis?
Hi guys, miss you. Hope you're having an amazing day. It's Alexis, HMIS. Happy to have you here. Curtis.
Hey, my name is Curtis Hahn. I work on the HMIS team as a business analyst, and I'm here to answer HICPIT questions. So get your HICPIT done. It's my quick blurb for HICPIT. I'm sure there'll be more.
Let's just go with next on the screen, John.
Hi, I'm John Nelson, and I'm a program specialist for HMIS team.
So I muted.
There you go.
I was muted that whole thing. Okay. Hi, I'm Michael, business analyst. And I make mistakes with microphones. So pass on to Natasha.
Hi all, I'm Natasha. I am a business analyst in training for the HMIS team. Welcome to everybody.
And Stephanie Grader, you want to go next and then I'll go?
Hi, Stephanie Grader, an HMIS program specialist.
All right, and I am the manager here for HMIS, Stephanie Crum. And we'll take it back to Laura for some webinar reminders.
Okay, so just some reminders for today. What you learn here, that's relevant information. We ask that you pass it on to your staff at your agency. We do have a Q&A function, which you guys already have been using. So you guys can ask your questions there. So attendance for today will be completed based on who finishes the survey at the end of this session. And then the recording for today and the notes for today will be sent out Tuesday, February 7th. And Friday, February 10th is the deadline to complete the video and quiz webinar. Okay, so today's agenda just went over the webinar reminders, and then you guys have loads of training today. So they're going to go over release of information reminders. They're going to go over zip codes, the HICPIT updates, data quality, and visibility.
All right, love bugs, a couple of just simple reminders. So user licenses, Maricopa County, you're going to do a simple ticket submission to our help desk, traditional. For balance of state, if you need to add additional licenses to your account, you're going to do that directly from ADO with Christina Benitez or Melissa Spine. And then we will follow up with that team to get your user set up. Remember, deactivating users is pertinent, so we're maintaining that data integrity within the system. That's also a ticket submission. And then we're always reminding you that you as the agency admin can do the password resets. In addition to that, whitelisting both of our service point sites. So for Balance of State, it's the rural AZ, and for Maricopa County, it's the Arizona nuance with your IT teams. That's why you guys aren't getting that email password reset link when you do it yourself for the self-service side. So if you guys could do that with your IT teams, that would be absolutely amazing. We had to do that too. Agency primary points of contact. It's pertinent to keep that information updated as it relates to HICPIT and important information. And we also know that some of the agencies have a secondary listing. Usually when we're sending out information, we're using that primary person. But if you want us to send it to the secondary person, just let us know and we can make those updates and changes for you. In addition, we've been seeing a lot of test clients happening in the live service point sites. That is like a big no-no as it relates to data quality. So if you need to do testing, training with your teams, we do have a training site. And if you want credentials or if you want to get your credentials over again, we can send that information over to you with no issue. Office hours. We hope you're enjoying office hours. For February, these are our tentative dates for AATW, and here is the schedule for office hours. Remember, I've changed that nuance. They're all sitting in Service Point. You click the link, join us, or send us a message and say, hey, can I have the office hours link? And one of the team members can send that over to you. And then tentative dates. What we're gonna do is some fun stuff with AATW. We're gonna do some recorded sessions so you guys don't have to be bothered and you can take care of business on site. And we're gonna have some live sessions. If you have topics that you need discussed at your agency, please send us a note. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, I'm gonna go over some ROI FAQs for balance of state versus Maricopa. So starting here with the significance, the ROI is required and should be noted in Service Point and supports visibility in the system. Some HUD guidance, the Department of Housing and Urban Development is authorized to collect this information by U.S. Housing Act of 1937. And some differences between the balance of state and Maricopa ROI. So how many signed ROIs should be stored? For balance of state, it's 1 per agency. And also for Maricopa, it's 1 per agency. In Service Point, how many ROI tab records should be recorded? For balance of state, it's 1 per project. And for Maricopa, it's 1 for the agency, or sorry, it's the agency's preference if they want to keep a record on the ROI tab. In Service Point, in Service Point, how to set the ROI end date. For balance of state, it's going to be set at 1 year. And then for Maricopa, the default is 2099 for the end date. And then if a client chooses not to share, do you contact the help desk? For balance of state, you do not. And for Maricopa, you will send us a ticket to lock the client. When can a client change their answer? Anytime for balance of state or Maricopa. And then just some other notes here. Why it's critical to record in the ROI tab, sorry. So this lets data get shared with the other service providers. The ROI is required at date of engagement. So projects that require a date of engagement, that's when the ROI would be collected. Do not delete old or expired ROIs. You would just add the new record. And number 2 here, there is an art report that shows clients with an expired ROI. So that report is the ROI report, general use. And then number 3 here, when the ROI expires, you must create a new ROI tab record instead of editing the dates on the old one. And then you must check with the client before updating expired ROIs.
All right, and moving on to a quick training on just updating the zip code field in Service Point. So the significance of this field, this has not been a HUD required field, but this is a locally required field or a local field that appears on our universal UDE assessment. The significance of this field is that it can really be used to help analyze and plan regional approaches to homelessness. Right now, we have really good completeness on this field, but the quality going into it isn't really helpful when we're looking for jurisdictional data. So we've made a couple of updates just to the field that might make it more, a little bit easier to understand what we're trying to collect here. So the HUD guidance for collecting a field like this, even though it's not required by HUD, is that what you're placing in there is the 5-digit zip code of the client's last permanent address of 90 days or more. What we see happen a lot is the shelter of intake being used as the zip code, or in this case of Maricopa, we'll see a lot of times 85007 being used, just because that's the nature of a lot of the intake. A lot of the agencies down there using that zip code, but it's not a residential zip code, so it's not really getting us sort of what we're trying to get here with that field. So we did update the field, and we put some text in there that says to please not use that zip code or the zip code of intake. Also, if you hover over the zip code of last permanent address for both Balance of State and Maricopa, it will give you a zip code to use for a city if a client can't remember exactly what zip code, because that absolutely does happen. But they might be like, well, you know, I lived in Peoria, I don't know the zip code. If you hover over that zip code of last permanent address text, a little hover window will pop up, which will give you a zip code that you could use for Peoria or whatever area you're in. So that's sort of the significance and sort of what we're getting at there. So that's it. Not much of a change, just sort of a reminder. But yeah, let's get into questions. Let's break for some questions because we had some good stuff there.
Yeah, we've definitely received a couple of questions. One of them was just what the AATW stands for. HMIS is a world of acronyms. HMIS stands for Homeless Management Information System, and AATW is the agency admin training webinar that you're currently attending. We also had a question about the ROI, and if an agency has their own ROI, if they can use that instead. We would say that the best practice is you'd have to use the HMIS ROI, which is often nested already in agency documentation. But if it is not, then you would want to use the HMIS ROI in addition to any other documentation that you have. There was a question about if a client is document ready for housing, but their information is locked. In theory, you would still be able to complete that housing referral. There may be some other issues, so I'd probably suggest just submitting the ticket in that situation. It really would be on a client by client basis, and would have to look at the client's profile to really be able to fully answer and say, for this specific situation, this is how I would want to proceed, or the best practice. But typically that shouldn't have any effect on a client's ability to receive a housing referral. We also had a question specific about a program that doesn't have an ROI tab. As you're in Maricopa County for that, the ROI tab doesn't actually have a, okay, that question is actually canceled. But the Maricopa ROI tab doesn't function the same way as the Balance of States, so it's not as high a priority in that sense, as although we do need an ROI still for every client in both Maricopa and Balance of State. I'm not sure, does anyone know that, Stephanie, you might know you were here during COVID and were a part of that, Stephanie Grader, COVID, that clients didn't need to physically sign the ROI? And if so, what dates that ended?
Yeah, so that's the I forgot what it is called, but no, you can get the it's basically you get it completed over the phone, and that's in lieu of the paper document. There is a script you have to read. We can send that link out. There's a training that we have as well with the script and how to complete the ROI over the phone. That's what we were saying. So yes, you can complete one over the phone. You just have to make sure that you're following the script and those and that workflow. We do have a training on it. I guess we can send it out with this material.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. I would say, yeah, if you will send out this material, and if you have further questions, send a ticket to HMIS help desk. We'll get someone connected with you to go over that and make sure that you understand what's going on there. I had a question about the test client in Maricopa County. You can use the test client. I think the main concern with test clients is not creating new ones. So what we find is that we end up with a whole bunch of clients that aren't real. And we know about the test clients. We actually built into a lot of our reports and take time each month to delete out all the information that's on there so that it doesn't affect reporting. Where if you're creating new test clients and we don't know about it, then those clients just sit and become show up on reports, both like system performance measures, HCPIT reporting. They can appear all of those and skew data. And that's really what the concern is that we would like to avoid, is not creating new test clients.
And also, if you're going to use the tester SIN, make sure to delete everything that you're putting on there, because then we would have to go in and delete those entries.
Yeah. If you would like,
Hold on real quick, Curtis. Misty, I already created and sent you the credentials for the testing site. I'll resend them to you, but I sent those to you Monday.
awesome. Yeah, and I was going to say, if anyone is requesting or wants the training site access, just to submit a ticket for training site access and we can get credentials sent over to you. Susan, you're asking if ROIs are in file attachments, is that okay? In Maricopa County, that's okay. We don't require the use of the ROI tab in Maricopa County, although it is great to have that updated. And that is typically ROIs are going to be in the file attachments as well as an update to that tab. And yeah, Misty, if you're still having issues with the training site, we'll have someone reach out after this meeting to help you directly. It'll be much simpler to do that in that situation. Yeah, so we're trying to avoid any training on the live HMIS site. It just creates a lot of excess data and creates data issues. So for training purposes, it is best to use the training website rather than the live site. All right, well, that was a great deluge of questions. Keep those coming as we follow up with more questions later. If you think of questions as stuff's going on, feel free to submit them before we get to this time. And I can loop back and cover them if there's something that needs to be shared with everybody, or if they're a question that just I can answer to you directly, I'll do that as we move through the meeting.
All right, so let's look at an update for Hick and Pitt for both Maricopa and Balance of State. So for Maricopa, the pit count was conducted and concluded on the 24th, which was last week. The reports from your agency, I hope you've been hopefully receiving emails from your point of contact here at HMIS, working on what reports and what projects you need to submit reports for. Those reports are due back to Solari for Maricopa on 2/7/2023 this year. Any issues that you're having, with the reports, running them, accessing them, anything that you just need support on, please reach out to your HMIS point of contact. If for some reason you haven't received an email or something or of that nature, if you could just submit a ticket as well, we will figure out where you need to go and who needs to contact you, and we'll take care of you. So just please reach out to us. I'll go back one more. There we go. But for Maricopa, those reports are due to Solari on February 7th, 2/7. So over to Balance of State. Due to weather, I know Balance of State was conducting their survey from last Wednesday up until Monday the 30th. I did see an email go out from Candy that due to some snow and some more extreme weather in some areas that the survey had been extended to 2/2. But please follow up with Candy Stanton to get the final word on that. I believe that has been extended to 2/2. That was the communication that I saw go out. If you're in one of those heavy weather affected areas, but please reach out to Candy Stanton for any support on the Balance of State survey and unsheltered count. For Balance of State, the reports, again, same thing. You should have received an email from an HMIS point of contact working with you on what projects need to be submitted. Those reports need to be submitted for. Those reports are going to be due back to Solari on 2/28 for Balance of State. So 2/28, the reports are due back for Balance of State. And again, any issues, please reach out to your HMIS point of contact, or if you can't do that, or if there isn't, you've lost the email on that, that's okay. Just give us a help desk email and we'll get you reconnected. So for once again, Maricopa, it is 2/7 is when your reports are due. And for Balance of State, it is 2/28. And that concludes that. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer those when we get to the next question break. I'm sorry, the Q&A.
Hello, thank you. So I've had a couple of things come in, so I thought maybe it's a good idea to go ahead and get into what has been occurring with the housing move-in date. Couple of issues. because I think maybe there was some miscommunication on how to handle the housing move-in date when it does come up. And for most projects, you won't do anything to the housing move-in date only. So this guidance is specifically relevant to rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, or other permanent housing. When you're entering a client into a project and they have a housing move-in date. So to be absolutely clear, that's not clearing the housing move-in date is not what tells anyone that this person is unhoused. There are other factors. So when you encounter a housing move-in date, unless or until the client has a new housing move-in date, that is, you are the project that is providing this client with housing, and the client is actually moving in, you don't change or delete the housing move-in date that is in place. That housing move-in date will not tell those housing providers that the client is unhoused. There are other factors that are primarily being looked at. So deleting or removing can cause some data quality errors. Obviously, that's going to be a problem on reports when it's unclear what data should have been entered. On the next slide, one of the things that specifically has been coming up is saving blanks. There was some guidance apparently a few years ago, and HMIS support apologizes if that guidance is still in effect. We have changed that policy. What we realized was what you see here, there is a blank space saved, and not any particular agency. These were just agencies that popped into my head, and I created this situation. So as you can see, the STF provider entered a blank in order to clear the housing move-in date, and thus suggest that the client is unhoused. There was a previous housing move-in date of January 4, 2018, but it will no longer be visible for that provider or any provider that is accessing that information. So I'm going to, if I can just share the screen for a minute, take the screen share. So I have this test client, client ID 11, if you're looking in the training site, that has this situation that I've created. So, and going back at least to 2016. So we look at the project start date to edit into look at information. And what I have is this blank. Again, I open here and I can see that there should have been a project. There was a housing move-in date. Now, this doesn't matter that there's an ROI. When ABC runs that project, that COC APR, there will be a housing move-in date error. Another issue is what we've also found when I go here is that because there is old data, this 12/21/2016, visibility of older projects data that were not sharing in the that may not have shared or had sharing agreements But enter data into the system would not be seen by any EDA users. So unless you're at the top level, HMIS level, you're not going to see this data. So, and all of this is because this data overwrites everything else. I hope that's clear. All right, back to the PowerPoint. Thank you. So again, when you run across an HMID and you are not actually housing the person, the client, leave it as it is. There's no need to delete it until you have an actual new housing move-in date. If a person, Bradwin, if a person is homeless in rapid rehousing.
I got it, Michael.
Okay.
All right. So there's a question about what move-in date do you use if the member is moving from one permanent supportive housing unit to the other? It would be the same day as the entry date if they're staying within permanent housing to the new permanent housing unit. Because for it to be a valid housing move-in date, it has to be after the entry, on or after the entry, and it can't be that if you're adding a new entry. There's a few various other situations if you're doing like a mass movement of clients from grants. But again, that's something, if you're in that situation and need more guidance to submit a ticket, and we can provide the guidance that we've done in the past.
Eric Marcus has a couple of questions.
Yeah, so the changing units, if it's changing units within the same project, you wouldn't need to change the housing move-in date. But if they're changing units and entering into a new permanent supportive housing project, they would need a updated housing move-in date that is on or after the entry date in the new project. All right, so the question is, can you better explain bed unit inventory counts for housing programs in regard to HIC? For housing programs, is this the number of families, units we believe we are going to serve at any given time? Yeah, so it really depends on your project type. In the case, it sounds like you may have a voucher project for rapid rehousing. In that case, the HMIS team will handle that and set the inventory so that it's correct. In case of other projects, I believe it's the 4th or 5th tab on the report. The HICPIT report has an inventory, and we're just asking that you confirm that that is the correct number of beds you have at your project. The other thing to keep in mind is to always have to look at it and confirm that you have enough beds to house the number of people you said you housed on that night. Because if that causes errors in the HICPIT reporting. And so continuing to update and make sure that we keep those up to date. So anytime there's a change that you're aware of in your bed unit inventory, to submit a ticket and let us know so we can update that on your provider admin page.
All right. Well, in conclusion, we just want to thank you so much for taking time today to come to this webinar. And your feedback is really, really important to us. So please complete the surveys both for your attendance and also for information and feedback back to us. If your question was not answered today, please submit a ticket to the help desk and we will get back to you with an answer. We hope you have a great day.